I'm Ashley Oliver with the Washington Examiner, and we're here interviewing Chairman Jim Jordan today of the Judiciary Committee. Hi, Mr. Jordan. How are you today?
I'm doing fine.
So I want to start with the top news right now, which is impeachment. Speaker McCarthy announced an impeachment investigation into Joe Biden. He did it without a floor vote. Can you tell us what changes with a verbal impeachment inquiry launch?
Well, you got the Speaker of the House announcing it, and the courts have been clear. You don't necessarily need a vote for the House to proceed with a duty or a power that is uniquely and specifically the House of Representatives under our Constitution. I mean, the impeachment power is under our Constitution is in the House. The Speaker announces it. I mean, the guy is second in line to the President when he announces that there's an impeachment inquiry. And I would argue the facts certainly warrant moving to that phase of our constitutional duty to do oversight of the executive branch. I think that carries weight. There may be a vote at some point. I think the Speaker's been clear. This doesn't preclude ever going to a vote. Maybe we will go to a vote, and that may add some added weight to it. But the fact that the Speaker of the House has announced it, I think, and the courts have been clear, you don't necessarily need a vote to proceed and to exercise this power that the Constitution gives the House.
When you say it adds weight to it if there's a floor vote, what would that involve? What does that mean?
I mean, it may or may not. Again, the courts say there's been federal judges who've been impeached where there was never a vote by the House to open an impeachment inquiry. They just proceeded with it, then developed the articles, and if the facts warranted, then developed the articles, and that judge was impeached. So whether we go to a vote or not, I think remains to be seen. What we're focused on doing is the facts, getting the facts, looking at the evidence, and following the Constitution.
Okay. I feel like your component of this investigation involves a lot of DOJ and looking into DOJ's investigation of Hunter Biden, seeing if he got special treatment at all is something you guys have been looking into. The top person over there, David Weiss, who's been leading the investigation, DOJ has committed to David Weiss testifying either this month or next month with your committee. Do you expect that to still happen?
Well, they committed to it. I mean, they said that he will come in and testify in front of the Judiciary Committee. So we expect that to happen either, as you said, later this month or early next month. So we expect that to happen. We're proceeding with our investigation. I think there are 13 different folks that the Chairman Smith and Ways and Means, Chairman Comer and Oversight and our committee that we want to interview. And I think we've already had in 5 of those individuals, and we're going to proceed through that list. But obviously one of those individuals is Mr. Weiss, and they've indicated that he would be able to come in for a full hearing, a little different than a deposition environment. And we expect that to happen.
DOJ would argue that, I've seen them say this, that it would be better to wait to talk to Mr. Weiss after he has released a special counsel report, concluded his investigation, put out a full report, and at that point he would be able to reveal more about his ongoing investigation to you guys. What would be your response to that?
Well, when they committed, they said it was still an ongoing investigation and he hadn't been named special counsel. So they can't use the idea that it's an ongoing investigation to not come, because they actually said that in court when the plea deal fell apart. They said it was an ongoing investigation. So I don't see how that logically can be a reason for them to do what they said to not do what they said they were going to do. But you know, this is the Department of Justice. We'll see. We go back and forth with these guys all the time. What I find interesting is the number of times that Mr. Weiss' story has changed. I said this in the Public Hearing and Oversight Committee. The White House story on this whole Hunter Biden issue has changed multiple times. And the Justice Department story has changed multiple times. But it's interesting that the 2 whistleblowers, their testimony has been consistent. And their testimony has stood up to cross-examination. So specifically, David Weiss told the committee on June 7th in a letter that he had full authority to determine when, where, and whether to bring charges. 23 days later, he writes this again and says, I stand by what I wrote, but I want to clarify. My authority is limited to bringing charges in my U.S. Attorney's District in Delaware. Well, dude, which is it? It can't be both. It can't be full authority, you're Tarzan, you can pound your chest and determine when, where, and whether. And then also, on the other hand, but it's only limited to Delaware. So then he actually changed it a third time when he wrote Senator Graham on July 10th. So that's why we expect him to come in and testify. He committed to do so. We'll expect him to be there.
Special Counsel Weiss just brought charges against Hunter Biden for a single gun incident, and that has seemed to be deeply unsatisfying to Republicans, including yourself. What more are you guys looking for from him?
Well, I think that's largely an attempt to save face. Remember, there's been reporting out there that they initially weren't even going to require Hunter Biden to plead guilty to anything. And then the whistleblowers come forward, and their transcript is out there, and they're like, okay, now we're going to go from that to the sweetheart plea deal that they took to the judge that the judge declined. And after all that's when they said, oh, now we better do a special counsel. And who do they pick? They picked the guy who oversaw the 4.5-year investigation where they put together the sweetheart plea deal that the judge declined. They picked that guy, David Weiss, to be the special counsel. So at some point they get like, well, we got to do something, and let's do this. Let's indict him on the gun charge, which has nothing to do with President Biden. It's the one thing that has nothing to do with the whole business operation and the links that seem pretty obvious to most people to the president. So let's charge him with that, and let's do it 2 days after Speaker McCarthy announces that there's an impeachment inquiry that's underway. Okay, but I mean, I think anyone with common sense can say, like, we can see what's going on here. Again, all the more reason why we hope he comes and testifies, and we can ask him some pretty pointed questions.
Have you yourself, do you have any perspective on other charges that Hunter Biden should be on the hook for at this stage with the leads and evidence that you guys have gathered? Well,
I go with what Gary Shapley and Mr. Ziegler said. They said that they're definitely, that their testimony is everyone was in agreement on the investigation team. People at FBI, people at DOJ, people at IRS, that they should proceed on the charges, including the felony tax charges for the years 2014, 2015. But instead, they drug this investigation out. They let the statute of limitations lapse. And what I find most interesting is they let the statute of limitations lapse on or run on the 2014, 2015 tax years. Those were the Burisma years. That's the heart of this. And they're like, we're going to make sure that doesn't really get covered here. That to me is because when you boil all this down to the whole impeachment issue, it really comes down to, I think, what happened at Burisma. That tells the full story. Hunter Biden gets put on the board of Burisma. Hunter Biden, fact number 2, Hunter Biden's not qualified to be on the board. He gets paid a ton of money. Gets put on the board, fact 1, not qualified to be on the board, fact 2. Fact 3, Burisma says, we need help. We're being pressured by the prosecutor. We need help. Can you help us? There's actually a call made from Dubai. Hunter Biden and the head of Burisma call D.C. Who'd they talk to in D.C.? Devin Archer says he doesn't know. Devin, his business partner, doesn't know. They call D.C. And then, of course, fact number 4, Joe Biden goes to Ukraine and gets the prosecutor fired. And he leverages our tax money, your readers' tax money, the viewers' tax money, the American people's tax money to get that done. That's pretty, and all that, those tax years, when all that money's coming into Hunter Biden, those are the ones they take off the table.
So on the point about Ukraine that you made, the counterpoint to that is there was a bipartisan support for Joe Biden to tackle anti-corruption in Ukraine and fire the prosecutor. What would be your response to that?
When Joe Biden goes and gets Shokin fired and brags about it, then we now know the videotape where he brags about it. When he does it, it was an abrupt change when that happened, because they were fine with Shokin, and then all of a sudden it changes. Oh, now we got to fire him. Okay, but it was an abrupt change from where the Obama administration policy was. Maybe more importantly is that pattern. Hunter Biden getting put on the board, not qualified to be on the board. He said it himself. Taking action. Burisma asked him to take action. Joe Biden takes the action. That fact pattern is consistent with what the confidential human source detailed in the 1023 form. The same 1023 form that the Justice Department didn't want to let us see, where the confidential human source tells the FBI, hey, Burisma was paying the Bidens money to get certain policy preferences. Well, Shazam, that's exactly how it played out. So you have all that sort of corroborating evidence. So that to me is what's compelling. And then on top of that, you have the Justice Department say, oh, we're not going to deal with those tax years. That to me is the case. And that's what we're looking into. And we're going to continue to do so.
And aside from Weiss, is there anyone with this investigation that you're looking forward to interviewing or having testify?
Well, we've had, there was this, Mr. Shapley in his testimony has said that the October 7th, 2022 meeting where Mr. Weiss told the investigation team, in that meeting there was Mr. Weiss, another U.S. attorney, 2 FBI agents, 2 IRS agents, and we're talking to those people. We've already talked to 4, I think, of those people in that meeting. We meaning the various committees. We've talked to a couple, the Judiciary Committee. So that's the meeting where Shapley says we learned that David Weiss didn't have the authority that he told the Judiciary Committee he had, a year later on June 7th of this year, where so Mr. Shapley says in that October meeting in 2022, David Weiss conveys that he doesn't have the authority to bring charges in D.C. or L.A. He's limited to, and Mr. Shapley talks about how Weiss conveys that he needs special counsel status but hasn't been given that status.
So some of those 13 are the ones you're looking forward to most for your component of the investigation, you'd say? Yeah,
we sent a letter, I think, from the 3 committees talking about the folks that we need to talk to.
So speaking of, on Wednesday, you are going to be able to talk to the top dog over there, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. Can you give us kind of a picture of some of what are the burning questions that you have for Mr.
Well, I mean, we're working on the questions, but I think it's better to talk about the issues. I don't ever like to necessarily get into the exact questions that we may ask, that the committee may ask. But I think that the top issues are going to be the David Weiss, this investigation. I think there's certainly going to be questions. What we'll see, he probably will try to not answer, but there'll be questions on Jack Smith as well. I mean, one of the themes that the country sees is you got now David Weiss named as special counsel, the same guy who for 4.5 years tried to make this all go away. Every witness we've talked to has told us how they were frustrated at the pace of this investigation, how it was slow walked, how there was no real urgency to try to get it done in their minds. So you got David Weiss, the special counsel, here it looks like to protect Joe Biden, and of course you got Jack Smith, who's on the attack against President Trump. So I think those issues, those will be 2 big issues that'll be questions about. I also think this decision in the Fifth Circuit is really big. First, you had the decision from the judge on July 4th in the Western District of the court in the Western District of Louisiana, where they talked about all these federal agencies and the Biden White House censoring Americans' speech, just attacking Americans' First Amendment liberties. And then you had the Fifth Circuit largely uphold almost all of that. Strong decision. So I think that'll be an item too, because the FBI is named in there as one who was involved in censoring people. And then a host of other issues, the school board issue, the Catholic memo, where the attacks on pro-life Catholics, the FACE Act, different things we'll talk about as well.
There's another topic I think that you yourself have been involved in, which is FISA renewal. That's coming up. It's in the next couple of months here, and I expect it to be an issue that rears its head at some point, and that's something that you are at odds with Merrick Garland and the DOJ on, I believe. Can you just speak to where the biggest point of contention is with the FISA renewal?
Well, yeah, this is the 702. I forget who had the story. 200 and some thousand times they queried this database on Americans in a way that they were not supposed to. They broke their own darn rules. So we're very nervous about that. We've been clear from the get-go. There's no way we're going to let this portion of the FISA law be reauthorized without major changes. And we've put together a little working group. 3 of our members and some 3 members from the House Intel Committee have been working on this. I think we're going to have some agreement with Democrats here, because this is about privacy. This is about civil liberties, and frankly, where we'd like to go is, if you're going to go search America's digital space, you got to get a warrant. Just like if you're going to go search Americans' homes, you got to get a warrant, and it should be that fundamental. So that's kind of what we're going to push for.
Do you plan to work with Ranking Member Nadler on this and perhaps be on the same page with him on this?
It'd be great if we could. There hasn't been many items where we've found common ground. Used to be with Democrats you could. I always point out that I was able to find common ground a lot of times with my good friend Dennis Kucinich, particularly when it came to civil liberties. So I'm hopeful we can renew some of that with former Chairman Nadler, currently Ranking Member Nadler, and find some common ground here and get that warrant requirement in there.
Okay. I think, Chairman Jordan, that's all I have for you. I really appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to the hearing with Mr. Garland.
Thanks, Ashley.